Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast series do not represent the official positions of the United States military or any branch of the armed services. These stories are personal experiences, shared by individuals who have proudly served our country and are now pursuing new careers and business ventures in the Virginia Beach and surrounding areas. The insights provided are unique to the individuals and do not reflect the military as a whole. Content warning. This episode explores sensitive topics including warfare, combat experiences, mental health struggles, and discussions of suicide. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is in need of support, please reach out to Inspired Purpose Counseling and Consulting LLC, based in the Hampton Roads area and featured during the Veteran Series.
So when I was in my unhealthy mind, I didn't really care about anybody far as, because when I left, and I left for a reason.
Sure.
So there was nothing, I didn't talk to people I didn't talk to people that was considered a part of my family for like 4 years.
Wow.
So I never talked to anybody. So when I literally left, I literally pulled the plug and disconnected from everything in the United States. So my difficulty was only my anger issues and me, because I didn't understand how to deal with anything. So that was the beautiful thing about the military when I joined in 1996 was it gave structure. And I'm not saying it was perfect. That's the last thing I'm saying. However, it gave me structure that I didn't have.
From the front lines to the home front, these are the stories of courage, resilience, and transformation. This is more than a podcast. It's a journey through the lives of those who served our country, now serving their communities here in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area. We're diving deep into the heart of their stories, their challenges, their triumphs, and their second chapters. Experience their journey from military service to entrepreneurship to giving back. This is the Veteran Series, only on the Discover Virginia podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're sitting here with Terry Cox II. Mr. Terry, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, Terry. Terry, for those of you listening, we're continuing on with our Veteran Series. Terry wonderfully and graciously served the United States Navy as an ammo expertise specialist, and also served some time as a mental health and substance abuse facilitator, and now works with people dealing with those issues as well outside of his career in the military, but for our military population as well here in the Hampton Roads area. So, Terry, we're excited to dive into the conversation today. And of course, those of you listening, we are going to be talking about subject of substance abuse and mental health. So this is your notice for that. So, Terry, I'd like to get started with the Navy. There are certain types of people, and I had this opportunity to talk to multiple veterans on this show in this series, that one reason or another joined the military. I'm curious for you, what exactly got you interested in joining the Navy?
To get out of the hometown that I was in. There was nothing going on there. It was just for me at my age, because I didn't know anything else. So it was more so just drugs, alcohol, gangs, and so there was nothing else to do because I had a lot of people in my family that was either involved in one of those three things.
Sure.
And so there was not going to be any way out if I would have stayed there.
Gotcha.
It wasn't going to work out for me.
So the Navy was just like a ticket to the new life.
Yes, and when I left the United States. I didn't come back to the United States for like 10 years.
Wow.
So when I left, I left.
Was that intentional, or did it just so happen the Navy transferred you out of state?
I actually asked when I got done with boot camp and I went through A school. My specific question was, what do you have outside of the United States? And they told me, and I went, and I didn't come back for like 10 years.
Wow. What are some of the places you went that you're allowed to disclose?
Oh, yeah. So it was Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Philippines, Thailand.
Yeah.
I went to what's that place? It's a small place in Russia. It's I can't remember the name, but it was a nice little town. But I went there. Brisbane. So
all over.
So I did West Coast. So I stayed over on that side the most. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Overall, like, how was the experience for you? Was there was it pretty enjoyable, like being able to see the world, or were there any challenges that came with being apart from your family and being apart from the life that you had left behind?
So when I was in my unhealthy mind, I didn't really care about anybody far as, because when I left, and I left for a reason.
Sure.
So there was nothing, I didn't talk to people that was considered a part of my family for like 4 years.
Wow.
So I never talked to anybody. So when I literally left, I literally pulled the plug and disconnected from everything in the United States. So my difficulty was only my anger issues and me, because I didn't understand how to deal with anything. So that was the beautiful thing about the military when I joined in 1996 was it gave structure. And I'm not saying it was perfect. That's the last thing I'm saying. However, it gave me structure that I didn't have.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to be on time for this and do these things. If not, I was held accountable. So I needed that in my life because I knew how to get away with stuff. And as long as I was getting away with it, I was going to keep doing it. And the military was like, not today.
Not today. So we were talking before the camera started rolling, 15 years ammo expert and then 6 years mental health and substance abuse. Mm-hmm. Something obviously changed. I'm curious, what lesson or lessons began to work with that unhealthy mind that you mentioned and transition you into this process of, okay, I need to be more mindful of my anger. I need to be more mindful of not only where I came from, but not necessarily repeating the past that I intentionally left behind.
Yeah. So I went to mass 6 times. Subtracted 2 is 4. So anybody that's familiar with mass, it's equivalent to like going to court for criminal crime. And I was always fighting and underage drinking. So I was always in trouble for like my first 3 years. Wow. So it got so bad. Short little side story. It got so bad that the CO knew my name. And he was like, Cox, just shut up.
Yeah.
The only reason you here is because your chain of command is fighting for you. If it wasn't for that, you'd be out my Navy today. So that was
that's a bumpy start.
Yeah. And so then as I started, once I had my son, that first I met my wife. So that's the first thing. Because my wife told me, she said, if you get into another fight, don't call me again. Because I ain't got time to come out here to visit you while you sitting on the ship on restriction. Because this was before cell phones and all that. So like when I did restriction, it was like, it's like being in, so for people not familiar with it, restriction is like going to jail. And when you're out to sea, the CO that I had, he was like, shipmate, we all on restriction when we out to sea. Your restriction time starts when we get into ports. And so I used to get put on like 30 days or 45 days. And so sometimes my restriction, although it said 45 days, I wouldn't finish my restrictions to like 6 months, depending on how long we got extended out to sea or stay here.
Sure.
So
because you intentionally marked going overseas, right?
Yeah.
And that was just part of the process. Yeah,
right.
You're always...
Right.
Yeah.
So you figure you pull in the port from a 6-month cruise. So at the time we was doing a 6 to 8 month cruise was normal. But I still got 45 days of my restriction to start. So at the time she would come, she'd be like, let's go. Yeah, I'm on restriction. I can't go nowhere. So then we had once she told me that settled me down to where my anger would slow down. Mind you, I still haven't got any form help, but I was just learning how to control it. But the way I was learning how to control it was because drinking. But then once I had my son is what sobered me up as time went through because I wanted to always be there for my son. And I can't see telling my son I'm on restriction, so I can't come see you. That's not what I was going to do. Then further on in my career, when I transitioned from being AO, which is aviation ordnance, but we deal with ammunition all the time, I saw a lot of people, the military had started going to where it was misunderstood as far as people drinking and why they get in trouble so much. And when I started working with the Drug and Alcohol Program Advisor, the DAPA, that's when I saw people, like they would send sailors to mass and then they would go get in trouble. And then after a while, nobody wanted to ever get them help. It was more like, all right, you got caught up, so now we're going to give you restriction. Then they go back out and do the same thing. And then sometimes as the time started going on, that's when stuff started happening with the Navy where they were trying to downsize. And that was a quick way to get people kicked out. Because now if you've been to mass, you can get kicked out.
Sure.
And I saw that I felt that people weren't being helped. So then that's when after I became a drug and alcohol program advisor, then I moved over and I started doing substance abuse rehabilitation program. I went to that school, which is a 10-week school. And that's not a regular 10-week school. Like that school, they can drop you from that class because it's about actually being genuine and being helpful. So it's not one of those schools where in the military where it's just a check in the box. No, you got to go through that school. So those are the things that helped me get to where I'm at today. Going through all those different transitions, seeing how it was, seeing other people, and then being helped. It was people that helped me out, and that stuck with me. And the only thing they ever told me was just pay it forward. Don't do nothing else. Just pay for it, man. That's all I want you to do.
So during your time in the military, this ticket to get away and start this new life, I mean, it still brought along the challenges that you faced at home. Were you, if you don't mind me asking, were you struggling with, were you partaking in drugs and alcohol prior to the military?
Yes.
Yeah.
I used to, so my first encounter with alcohol was at the age of 13. It was Mad Dog 2020 grape flavor. I never forget. I drank that. And it was, and I smoked 2 packs of cool cigarettes. And I remember I knocked on the door and they opened up the door and I fell face down. Pow! And that's how I started drinking from there.
Yeah.
And then I worked on roofing. So working on a roofing company, they would put gin inside of the coffee. So it's like, I never forget. That's another time it was cold and I'm sitting up there without my shirt on because I'm sweating because I got a whole bunch of liquor in my system.
Yeah.
So those are the things. And then now you get into the military and the job that I was in, and I'm not endorsing alcohol by no means, but just when I came in 1996 as an AO, it was play hard, work hard. And when we worked hard, we worked hard. And when we played hard, we played hard. So
yeah.
That's what so that was our culture and our community. So with family, again, so my family, I didn't deal with them. So my it was more so I isolated and I just blocked myself off because I didn't want to be hurt. And at the time, I didn't know those things. It was just the fact I just want to get away and I don't want anything. Because, I'm a man, so dudes don't cry. I ain't got time for this. I'm just going to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there a point in the military career journey of meeting your wife and child where you started to see that unhealthy mind begin to reverse itself? Or do you feel like that a lot of that work that you needed to do happened outside of that time frame?
It all happened during that time frame, but I didn't understand it at the time because my wife is Japanese. And so, and my wife grew up with both of her parents. I didn't grow up with both of my parents. So I had this imagination of what a family's supposed to look like. She actually had a family.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So in my mind, I have like the Bill Cosby good times concept of what a family is, right? And then, the Brady Bunch. So those are what I see. She actually has a whole different side of how she sees life. And then disciplinary. So one thing
different culture too, yeah.
Right. So one thing though I've always told myself is that I would never discipline my children if I had been drinking. And so I never did that. So I had to figure out different ways. And we got into arguments. I never put my hand, I don't believe anybody should ever put their hand on women. So I never done that. I would just walk away and I would just stay gone for a while, but I would just start drinking. So that was my escape because that's what I knew. Because I can just drink. And when I drink, I always just wanted to isolate. Like, I don't want to be bothered and all those things. So the work happened by just meeting good people and then going through the school and then just meeting other people that was dealing with similar issues, but we weren't going to get help. We was just sitting around just talking or saying whatever.
So getting that help seemed like during your military career transition, but also your transition into the civilian life has really helped really become the new crux of what you rely on as far as that supportive system, right?
Well, so the school I went through, Substance Abuse Rehabilitation Program School, it's called Index, Navy Drug and Alcohol Counselor School.
Right.
That school is equivalent to a master's program for drug and alcohol counseling. So that school is really what showed me a lot of stuff that was going on. So in 2010, when I went through that school had you look into yourself. So because basically at that school, you mimic being a patient for 10 weeks.
Right. In order to serve people that need that help, you have to really look inward, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where the real work started, where I was actually conscious of, oh, yeah, that might not be the healthiest thing to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then that job, being able to be blessed and fortunate to work with patients who taught me stuff and good people who taught me stuff. Those are the things that helped me to continue to be better because my mindset is that I refuse to tell somebody to do something I've never even practiced or I don't believe in because alcohol and mental health is generational. A lot of times, oftentimes, some people see it as just one person. I don't because you have, say for instance, if you have a family, right? If I have my wife and child.
Sure.
And I'm sitting there and I'm saying I'm going to counseling. But my wife is looking at me like, why are you going to counseling? Why are you going over there to talk to them? Now my child sees how I'm finna react. If I'm not doing anything healthy, then my children see that. So now my children hate counseling because my family's arguing because of your counseling. So now nobody wants counseling. And so because the counselor is supposed to be able to help the client to understand. You see what I'm saying? But the client is coming to his own. But if you're giving the client stuff that you're not even using, when that client comes talk to you and say, hey, I'm struggling with this because this is going on. Well, if you're not really authentic and genuine about what you're telling that client, you have no answer to give that client.
Yeah.
And now you just destroyed that person's home. And that's tragic. And I refuse to do that. So it's all about if I suggest something or if I were, but I don't suggest anything, but if we're talking about something, it's based off something that I've applied to my life at one point in time. Because we all evolve. So the same style that you might have did 3 years ago might not work now because you're at a different part in your life. And that's just how it is. So we're always evolving.
Yeah, yeah. That authenticity part too, I mean, that's the root of building any kind of bond or trust, right? Being able to be authentic and trustworthy.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this next subject here as you transition out of the military, your post-military life, into civilian life. Curious for you, what was that process like? Because a lot of the folks that we have talked to have since transitioned into careers or owning a business. How was your experience?
Trash. I want to say another word, but it's trash.
Yeah.
The reason why is because in the military, I was used to a bond. Like if you gave your word on something, you did. And once again, I'm not saying that everybody in the military gave their word. No, but we had rules, and if you broke those rules, you paid for that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you say I'm going to be here at 1700, you're not at 1700 for watch. You go in the mass. Like this is what happens.
Sure.
If you and then when you had a close knit of shipmates, devil dogs, that's Marines, and there's a bond that you form with people. And when you give people your word, I mean, these are people's lives.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because all of us understand the fact that we got to go home to our spouse, and we've been gone for 6 months, and we coming back. So if you say you're going to be somewhere to help me out, then be there. Don't say that you got something else going on, you really don't. So it was just that bond, that camaraderie that I missed because there was nothing like that. And I wasn't used to people working based off of the clock. Because so for 21 years, I've always had a job since I was 13. But when I joined the military, that's when my real job, like I consider somewhere you go in every day. There was no such thing as I'm looking at the clock. It's like they call you, you go to work. Right. Yes, you're going to have
you
something.
do it till it's done. Yeah.
Right. There's no, it's 5 o'clock. And then it's not like, oh, no, either way, we're going to get paid this full time anyway, so you can just do half of it because you don't want to do too much.
Right.
What? That's not.
Yeah.
So why are you getting paid?
Sounds like that work ethic traded off for that civilian life was a very different adjustment for you. Yeah. And so I'm curious if there are any obstacles you faced that you would be open to sharing when it came to either revisiting your past during the military training or post-military life as, hey, you're back in civilian life. I mean, did you have any interest in like reigniting any old relationships with past family members?
I can tell you, I stayed away from family members because I believe as a family you're born. I believe there's your family that you're born to, and then the family who you choose.
Right.
And just because you're born to a family, don't mean you have to choose to be with them because sometimes they might be very unhealthy.
Right.
There's another thing.
And that's okay.
Oh yeah.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it's better than okay.
Want to underline that sentence here.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because I'm not by no means telling people to leave, but because how I did it was unhealthy. But what I will say is that I learned the difference between religion and spirituality. And what people don't, and this isn't disrespect anybody that watches the show, because I believe if you have something that's maintaining your life, you do that. As long as it's not damaging other people, right? But a lot of times people understand religion and they get confused. So religion is like, for instance, if you're Christian, Buddhist, Baptist, Jewish, Islam, those are religions. But a lot of people have a difficulty understanding spirituality. So the easiest way I can break down spirituality is that you got a piece of paper? I can show you something real quick.
Yeah, I just got my notes here.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, can I get a pen?
I can show you something. So this is what helped me out. And this isn't.
I'll just take it.
I call it a Terryism.
Terryism.
Yeah. So
you do, like a couple colors here.
Yeah. You got a pen so I can actually write the word.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't want nobody like that ain't right. This will help me about
this
my
is
life.
interesting. So spirituality,
Right.
and religion, two different things.
Yes. So I'm gonna write the word spiritual. All right. So in life, right? say for, and I'll just talk about me, right? If so that's the word right there. But say for instance, I wake up and normally what I do is when I wake up, I would have a drink because I'm stressed out every day. What that is, and what that is really, that's a ritual. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, every time I do that ritual, that behavior, right? Something's gonna happen. Either I'm gonna feel good, bad, or indifferent. My emotions is gonna go either up, down, or blah, right? What that is, that's a spiral. So what you're doing is it's causing you to spiral. But the spiral can either go up or down. So it all depends. Now, this is the part where religion and spirituality come into play. Some people call it, I go talk to God when people get frustrated, right? And I have God as I understand God, you see what I'm saying? But then some people say, nah, I just have a conscious thought, right? What you just highlighted was a spirit.
Right.
You can either call that a form of consciousness, you can call that a higher power. But the thing for me is when I understood what my rituals were that I didn't like because it was making me feel some type of way, I had to change how I thought and how I processed things in order to do my ritual. So it's not like it goes one straight way, but they all correlate. And the person who I just talked about was who? Me.
You.
Because this is all me.
Right.
I didn't put it into anybody else. But this takes taking a hard look at yourself. Here you go. I don't want to take your notes.
Oh, you're fine.
It requires you to take a hard look at yourself and be humble to yourself. Because that isn't about anybody else. It's about you being humble to you, to be able to understand who you are and what's going on. Because sometimes, especially as men, we don't want to talk about that. We just want to get it done. And I don't want to give you the whole ins and outs of what I'm doing. I'm just going to get the mission done. You know what I mean? Like, let's just get it fixed. And so, but we're people. People don't get fixed. People get healed. Machines get fixed. So when I look at that and I understand my spiritual wellness, I have to understand what am I doing and what's the benefit and how I'm going to feel later. Because right now it might feel good to slap somebody. But what's going to be the... what's going to happen later?
Absolutely. Yeah. And thinking about that drive and that spiral of like, oh, I have to do something. I have to take a drink or take a smoke. I'm curious, like, when we begin to look inwards and look at that spiritual nature, what do you define that as? Like, what do you need to get in check? Is it your character? Is it your morals? Like, what do you need to get in check in order to become at peace or accomplish the goals that you want?
The first thing, and the most difficult thing for me was to be honest with yourself.
To be honest.
With yourself.
With yourself.
And after you become honest with yourself, to humble yourself to yourself. Say that again. Humble yourself to yourself. Because sometimes in my mind, I thought, I got this. I know what's going on. Because I refuse to get beat. And the reason why I want to win is because I hate this other person so much to hate them see me down. I'm going to try harder. That's not humbleness. Basically, I'm doing this for you. But the reality is, the person who you're probably trying to beat might not even care about you. They don't even care whether you win or not. So you just spent your whole 2 years to prove to somebody that you good enough when they never care from the get-go.
Yeah.
So it's about, for everybody's journey is different though, right? But I would say from my experience and from working with different clients, learning from different clients and learning different things, it's about humbling yourself to yourself. And when you can do that, you'll start to understand that I make mistakes and I'm not a mistake. And from there, things will start to happen genuinely. And you're not doing it for anybody else. Because oftentimes we do stuff for other people because we want to look good. Not because it feels good. And then sometimes we do it because it feels good, but it ain't good. So it all depends on, you have to ask yourself, what is your intent? So behind every action, ask yourself, what's the end game? For yourself, not for anybody else. What is your end game? Yeah. When you enter inside of a conversation with people, when you're talking to people about your mental health, what is your end game? What do you want to do? And if you don't know, that's the part about being humble, to say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing. But that takes humbling. And some people confuse that word humility with humiliation because they too close in the dictionary.
Yeah.
Because last time I was humble, I got humiliated. So you can take you and your humility somewhere else.
Two different words. Terry, I like this dichotomy that you've built for the inward journey of humbling yourself or taking the time to reflect and make sure that you are humble.
Hey everyone, Michael here from Behind the Camera. Right now we're taking a quick break to acknowledge and thank our wonderful studio host, Atlantic Bay Mortgage Group. When it comes to getting information and guidance on financing your next home purchase, we recommend talking with Atlantic Bay. They are one of the original lending institutions in our home city of Virginia Beach, and have a long resume of getting the job done well and making your home buying experience more enjoyable. So, if you're looking to experience Virginia full-time, consider checking them out today at www.atlanticbay.com. Disclosure: loan programs may change at any time with or without notice. Information deemed reliable but not guaranteed. All loans subject to income verification, credit approval, and property appraisal. Not a commitment to lend. Atlantic Bay Mortgage Group, LLC, NMLS number 72043, NMLSconsumeraccess.org is an equal housing lender. And now, back to today's show.
I want to go to a statistic next here to kind of guide our conversation because while you do focus quite a bit about mental health and substance abuse, specifically within the young men demographic range. So I want to read this kind of an unsettling statistic here.
Okay.
It's from the StanfordReview.org. It's titled Young Men in Crisis. So young men are 3 times more likely to overdose, 4 times more likely to commit suicide, and a staggering 14 times more likely to be incarcerated than their female peers. 98% of all mass shooters are male. Seems like violence, addiction, and self-harm all represent this desperate cry for help from a generation of struggling young men.
Yeah.
How does that set with you?
A sad reality of truth. Because I was there when I can empathize with those thoughts because sometimes you think, man, what's the point? Like, nobody ain't listening. What's the point? And then if you got life insurance, you think, you know what? And by no means am I telling somebody to think, I'm just telling you how Terry is.
Sure.
I'm telling you about my journey.
But if you are struggling with that, you begin to play those scenarios out.
So this was my journey. I would think, you know what? I got life insurance. Maybe it would be easy on everybody if I just stay in here and then they get the money. Because I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of trying to get people to see it, my understanding, because they don't get it.
Yeah.
Because you don't. And sometimes I don't want to tell you what I did, especially from the military, depending on what our jobs were. You might not understand my job. You might think that you're evil. No, that was my job.
Right.
That's not me, but that's like I had to protect this person. I had to do this, and you don't understand that. And so now I'm afraid to talk to somebody because now you're going to see me as an evil person, but I'm not evil. That was my job.
Yeah.
And so now you stuck with this, and you're not going to talk to your wife about that. You're not going to talk to your spouse about that. No, because we signed clearances. So you ain't never going to talk to nobody about that.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So, it sucks, man, because it's like, it's hard. It's hard out there. So for all the people that's out there struggling, whether you be male or female, just, you matter, yo. You matter. I don't care what nobody tell you. Not even the person in the mirror. I'm going to tell you. Especially the person in the mirror. Tell that person in the mirror that they matter. Because the person in the mirror is a beast. That person knows you better than you know you. That person knows the mirror is basically your reflection. That mirror knows the stuff that you ain't telling nobody. When you say, I'm a good person, that mirror on a bad day, that mirror can be like, oh yeah, you are. You remember 3 years ago? Yeah, you're right. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our inward self is really going to dictate how we look and see and feel about ourselves.
Yes.
And for a lot of those individuals, and those seasons for individuals, male or female, can kind of be comprised as this depressive state, and depression is one of those things where we were talking to Brittany with Inspired Purpose about that, especially with the military population they leave, and that sense of camaraderie, that sense of belonging is kind of lost.
Yes.
And it does sometimes result in depression.
Yes.
What we do with that depression is we can talk about in a minute here, but I want to talk about why do people, especially young men, hide their depression?
Because you don't want to be no punk. I just keep it real. I don't mean to that's the reality. People don't want to be no punk. And then I say it was all respect to any adult that's gonna do what they do. You do what you do. But young men are conflicted about what it is to be a man these days. And you got that on top of that. And then you at home but you working, doing the best you can to be a man. but you getting compared with everybody else who ain't you. Just sometimes by how you look. For instance, if you're a Caucasian male, people have this perception, unfortunately, these days that you privileged. What? Shut up. No. If you a black male, oh, you want a handout? No, shut up. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's like, and if you're an Asian male, then you just weak. No, shut up. You see what I'm saying? It's like I'm a male, you a male, and we both got families, and we understand what it's like to try to raise a family, and It's not easy. But we keep ourselves constricted into these little boxes.
Sure. It's like a name tag, a role that we put on.
Yeah.
Or that somebody gives us, and we feel like we need to put it on. Yeah.
Because they make it, and that's why I love the military so much, man. Because the military, I tell people all the time, I used to have the dumbest combination of life of anything. How you gonna be a game bringer and a racist? That's dumb. But I can say it now, and I don't say it like it's funny because it's not. But I'm just saying is that some people, unfortunately, man, we carry this stigma around, and then some of people, they go back home to their home environment because they want to do right by their family, but it's certain people who just don't want to do right. And it's easier for them to suck you back in, regardless of who you are. But as a man, so as to answer that question, as a man, if you grew up around unhealthy people and you want to go home to visit your mom, those unhealthy people there, and you ain't trying to tell them, I feel sad. What? These are the same people who, what? All right, whatever.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And that's when that mirror come back up.
Sure.
And so I think this is the reason why it happens, man. It's unfortunate, and that a lot of times we'd rather, and this isn't just about race. This is just men in general. Sometimes even we get so stigmatized about what it is. They come up with these terms like toxic masculinity. It's like, what? Because I care about my wife or I care about the people I love, and I'll do anything to defend them. That's toxic. Okay, whatever. But it's a long road to come from that because society tells you what these things are. And so now you have to fight society, and then sometimes you have to fight each other, unfortunately, just to be okay. So then you seclude and isolate, and then that's how you get into that part where we hear those sad statistics, because now I can't talk to nobody.
Yeah.
Who's there to talk to?
So what do you define as a man? And I'll put a preface here, a man of character or a man of humility.
If you can look, this is the easiest way I can tell you, man, because we can go on that. That'll be a whole different thing. If you're a man with a family, right? Or just a man in general, so I'll answer that question. If you know you did the best you could today with the information that you had today, and you didn't do anything malicious to harm anyone else, you got good character today.
Sure.
That's the easiest way I can sum it up. It's like, because I don't know what I don't know, and we all get lied to. We all get, we are all liars. We're all liars. I'm a firm believer in that because I know I'm a liar. I know different people watch the podcast, so I won't go into certain things that you know. But some people just know. Some people say a white lie.
Well,
Okay.
that's what you said when we first met. You were saying there's always three sides to the story.
Yeah.
There's his version, and the truth.
Right.
Right? Because, we all tell our lies.
Yeah. And then but then some people say, no, that's a white lie. What did it end with? A lie.
Yeah.
You just don't like my lie, so you call mine a lie. You like your lie, so you call yours a white lie.
Yeah. And so, like, if we continue on with this thought process, so humility is owning what it is you are. Humility, being humble to yourself,
yes,
and identifying that,
yes,
and continuing on with that. If you look at it through the lens of a role, is that okay? The role men play in society, or the role that you could play, trying to do the best you can. Maybe that's your role. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like young men are running from that role and that responsibility?
So I think it's a mix, man. I don't think people are running from it. I think people have gotten agitated because they got humiliated so many times. So now they're just saying, forget humility.
Yeah.
Because last time I asked for help and I told you I couldn't do it, I was struggling with it. Unfortunately, as men, we'll bash another male to make ourselves look good in front of whoever it is we're trying to look good at. Mm-hmm. And so that's the unfortunate part. And I have and unfortunately what's going, the climate of the world, and this ain't about politics, but the climate of what people make you look like just by saying, I care about my family, I want to be safe. Something wrong with you. What? But you can do what you like to do too. But all I'm saying is that's what I think. But that doesn't mean I'm trying to tell it to you. But then it's like I remember, man, I'll never forget this. I remember, and let me know if I go too far, but I remember
You're good. Keep going,
about the character is that I never forget a scene. I saw a man beating up on a woman. I was a little kid. And I remember some dudes from nowhere just stopped and was like, hey, bro, what you see what I'm saying? These days, we paying for fights to watch a man beat up on a woman. And we say it's okay. Now, fast forward to your question. Am I afraid to be a man?
Yeah.
You put me in a conundrum.
And that is, it's fascinating you say that. And I think it goes back to the roles and responsibilities of, community or societal norms that like kind of dictate what it is someone is and the role and responsibility. And just identifying for those individuals who are struggling with, depression or trying to understand that sense of identity. I think it's important to facilitate conversations towards that because, like you said, regardless of where you end up in your spiritual journey, as long as you're doing the best you can, right?
Well,
I think as a society and a community, I think that's the best we can hope and want for people.
Right.
Yeah.
But a part of the humbleness comes in as men to say, you know what, bro? And when I say bro, I mean, I call you, because you're a brother.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, bro, I don't understand this. Can you help me?
Yeah.
That's the part of my being humble to myself first to understand, Terry, you really don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So go ask for some help, bro. But then you have to fight that thought process of, nah, but last time I did that, I got embarrassed. They made fun of me. So I ain't doing that no more. So I'd rather just keep struggling and then saying people ain't going to help me.
I want to tackle the subject of drugs and alcohol next because
Yeah.
we're following down this route of people are, especially young men with the stats we've read and understood, we're depressed, we don't really understand the role and responsibility.
Yeah.
So what does that lead to? Well, we're just gonna find another way. We're gonna numb it. We're gonna try to find a solution. And for a lot of people, that includes drugs and alcohol.
Yes.
I'm curious for you. Do you think substance abuse is like a silent epidemic stealing our young men?
When you say silent epidemic, what do you mean by a silent epidemic?
Like, it's very prominent throughout society. Drugs and alcohol. Everyone hears that. Drugs and alcohol. I help them use drugs and alcohol. You see the guy on the street needs a quarter. Hey, I'm on hard times, whatever. But it's so not mainstream. It's so silent and definite. Just this seems like there's the quiet nature to it. It's a very almost like an assassin, like it's been sneaking up on us.
Yeah, I better understand now. But if I could, I would say that it's not silent. I think it started off like you're saying.
Sure.
But now look at it. If you go to a business meeting, what do they got? Happy hour.
Right.
So it's put right there, but it's made it seem like it's fun. And I'm not telling nobody not to drink. That's not what I'm saying.
Sure.
If you're drinking and it's not impacting your family life, where your family's talking to you or you're not talking to yourself, wondering like, why did I do that? Okay. I'm not here to tell anybody about that because I drink a lot. You see, I used to drink 2 Phil Long iced tea. So I'm not here to tell you not to do something like I'm better because I'm not. I'm perfectly imperfect. However, what I am saying is alcohol has become a cool thing because now if I drink or I get high, right, and I start crying, that was the alcohol, man. That wasn't me. You know me. I don't do that.
Sure.
But when I'm drinking, I can say, man, I'm so jacked up. I'm so tired of this. And I can blow off steam.
Right.
But then when I get sober, I ain't say that. Bro, that was the alcohol. But that's what I really felt.
Sure.
So I think the alcohol they've done, that's why now you got places that's letting drugs be, because people just stay zoned out. I don't have to deal with it. I just stay zoned out. And then when I go off on you, I can say, that was the drugs, that wasn't me. Okay. The first time, all right. Second time? The third time, that's a pattern.
Yeah.
So that's why I say I think initially it started off as the silent, but now I believe that now it's just become norm. Like you look at commercials, you look at all these different things, man. It's making it to where it's okay. And I think breweries, I think Hampton Roads, like we have a lot of good breweries, and I think those are things awesome. I also think that there's nothing wrong with having to know that I don't have to drink. I remember there was a time, man, when you went to bars, like they used to be like, hey, man, if you the designated driver, we're going to put this band around. You can get whatever you want, as long as it's non-alcoholic and even a slice of pizza.
Sure.
So they made not drinking cool during that time.
Right.
Because we would switch. All right, bro. Well, I didn't. but
You had the option to.
Right.
Yeah.
But now they don't publicize that like it used to. Now it's more so of what all you're drinking. So again, I'm not saying stay away from brewery because I enjoy breweries. You don't have to drink because you go to a brewery. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that it's just that there's other places that market it to be cool. When you look at the news media, they market it to be cool. So that's the downside to it.
Speaking on other things that, especially young men and people in general use to kind of maybe create an outlet for themselves or kind of numb the world around them, it's social media.
Yes.
I'm curious, are people losing their identity to social media?
Yes, absolutely. And they told you they would. They put it in front of you. Because, look, that's what emojis are for. Now they got different faces for the emoji. And when they made that one commercial, and I like the song, anyway, but the part that sticks out is it was a giraffe face. And the person was saying something crazy. But that's the giraffe. That's not me.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And so this is how it starts. It starts off small, and then you got these keyboard bullies and thugs that they do this stuff on the keyboard to people and talk all this madness. And then the way that you read emails and social media, like if I put it in all caps, I'm yelling.
Yeah.
So I think that gives people a mask to hide behind when they do that. And I'm not making fun of anybody like that. I think, though, there's not something that tells people that you don't have to do that to be you. That comes back down to understanding who you are. But so many times, and these days, it's hard to be you. And I'm not going to tell a lot of it's easy to be you. It's not. Because you have so many external forces. Like right now, first impression matters. Regardless of whether I agree with it or not, it's a true statement.
Right.
But how many times, how many times you've seen people who dress the part get hired and know nothing about what they're doing?
Yeah.
And the person who didn't dress so nice know what they're doing. But they working lower than that person because they didn't have an outfit. Because they chose to pay groceries, then go buy the suit. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So people don't know to understand or understand all these things. And so this is the way the world is, because if I look like I'm smart, I'm smart.
Yeah. But from your perspective and what I think you have highlighted so well is the internal focus that you have to have in order to get everything else straight on the outside. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. That internal focus of whether it's a balance of spirituality or humility, just identifying that inwardly first.
Mm-hmm. And that's a road, man. That is not listen, anybody that's on that journey, I applaud you. And
it's not a quick fix. Yeah. This is not where we insert the course that you can buy to fix your life. No.
Listen, you're gonna keep living, you're gonna keep experiencing. I call myself a pimp. The P is for perfect, the IMP is for imperfect. Perfectly imperfect. And I'm okay with it. But it took a long time to get there, though.
Yeah.
Because I had to be this dressed up garbage can. I had to be this person who looked like I knew everything. And if I didn't know anything, oh yeah, I was gonna guilt trip you real quick. And sure. I knew how to do it. You see what I'm saying? But I didn't know how to be humble with myself because I had been humiliated so many times that the next thing I got is anger.
Right.
Because I've been hurt from betrayal. That's just the way it is.
So I've been doing some research on YouTube and for the show and preparing for this conversation. One of the things that popped up with these videos from older men, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they said, I'm 50 years old. If you're in your 20s, watch this. Mm-hmm. All these videos, millions of views.
Yes.
And just preliminary research, I think there can be an argument made, it's causation, not correlation. Correlation, the fact that young people primarily are on YouTube and on these search engines, mm-hmm. and they're looking for something like this. They're looking for conversations like this to say, how did you do it, Terry? Yeah. Yeah. How did you come from smoking and drinking at 13 and having this, need for alcohol that has been passed from one generation to the next? Because we know that that is a reliance that our body has, that can be, mm-hmm. biologically passed on, mm-hmm. to then working inwardly and now helping other people do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. That's a complex question. And so for me, I try to, long story short, short story long, I started to use alcohol as a getaway. What I mean by that is that's my get out of jail card free. So if I did something, I'd be like, I was drinking. So what are you saying? I never, now, mind you, the way I played it, though, was pretty smooth in my eyes back then.
Right.
Is because I would never blame the alcohol, but I would just say, I was drinking it, but what you want me to say? You see what I'm saying? That was my attitude towards it.
Right.
But it was my mind that was messed up. So you're right when you say the alcohol, right? But if you don't mind your mind can do some wonderfully dangerous things.
Yeah. I mean, minding your mind, that healthy mind, regardless of if it's depression, if it's alcohol, if it's social media, like it starts with that, right?
And sometimes you got to know, and this is the part where it's being humble, man. It's like sometimes you got to know when to walk away. Like even when you arguing with your loved one, right? Sometimes it's like just because you think you're winning, you might not be winning. You really might be losing. And sometimes when you think you're losing, you might be winning. But that's a hard pill to swallow, especially as a dude, especially as a man, because it's like your wife is like 120 pounds and you might be like 200. She might be this tall, she might be this tall, you this tall.
Right.
And you for to walk away from this one, that's a punk.
Yeah.
You see what
absolutely.
I'm saying? But sometimes, man, that's the best thing because you can't pull back your words. And once you say them words they said, you can sit there all day and say, I'm sorry. I've been married for 25 years. Anybody who can tell me that your wife don't even remember what you said, or even for the women who watching this, if you can tell me that your husband don't even we remember. We might not bring it up as much, but we remember these words because they hurt.
Right.
So that saying that we used to say, sticks don't break my words, run that, lies. Because if that statement was true, then why do we have self-esteem? Because somebody tells you you're beautiful, you matter, all these things. Those are words. So words will break you.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful what you put in your mind.
Tari, I want to wrap up the conversation here today with this overarching question, tying into what we've discussed so far, and that's if there was one message, every young person in America needs to hear today. The political realm alone, the state of identity, the state of roles, the state of responsibility for actions, right? All of that considered, what do you think is one message that you would want to at least start the conversation? Because I know it's, like you said, it's a life journey. But what would be the start?
So I like to mix it with my favorite author, Dr. Seuss, mixed with my own version.
Okay.
And it's those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. That's what Dr. Seuss says. I just added to it. So I hope you never mind that you matter.
Terry, thank you for your time.
Right on. Thank you.